The anime begins by showing a young girl named Miss Beelzebub living her life in a palace in hell. She is one of the demon queens whose job is to regulate the course of life in hell. But unlike the demon lord known to be cruel and terrible, she likes girly and cute things like ordinary girls. That morning, when all the higher-ups in Pandemonium Hell were gathering for a meeting, Beelzebub was still fast asleep in her room filled with cute doll decorations. Murin, a young man who became her personal assistant, felt very annoyed because Beelzebub was already late for the meeting. So he immediately barged into her room only to find her asleep in her room with no clothes on at all. Murin immediately scolded Beelzebub for getting ready and leaving for the meeting room to attend the meeting. Murin himself is often annoyed because Beelzebub is a magic queen who is very lazy, childish, and perverted. It was different from the image of a demon queen that existed in his imagination when he was about to apply for a job as an assistant to the demon queen for the first time. After the meeting, Beelzebub started to do all the work in her office with Murin, who always accompanied her. Although Murin is often annoyed by her behavior, he is sometimes amazed by her when she can focus and take her work seriously. He even often blushed at the praise and attention given by Beelzebub from time to time. The next day, after finishing office work, Murin and several other bodyguards accompanied Beelzebub for a walk in the middle of the city. But in the middle of the journey, she suddenly disappeared, and he panicked, looking for her whereabouts in various places. During the panic, a milk seller offered Murin several milk variants, but he angrily replied that he was looking for another type of milk. After searching various places, Murin finally found Beelzebub, who was being bullied by some male thugs in an alley. With his fighting strength, he can easily beat the thugs to make them run in fear. When Beelzebub asked about his condition, he instead scolded her for making him feel worried. When they returned to the palace, Murin apologized and started reading her to-do lists for tomorrow. But instead of listening to him, Beelzebub rushed into the room and closed the door. This made him confused and afraid that he would be fired from his job, even though she did that because she blushed when he apologized to her. Fortunately, the next day Murin wasn't fired by Beelzebub at all, and he had to go back to face her behavior, which was increasingly lazy to carry out her work daily. While leaving her room, Murin accidentally slipped from the top of the stairs and fell into the arms of a tall and burly adult man. Azazel is one of the royal guards who can't talk, making him look like a cool guy. But in fact, he really likes cute things like children's books, bunny pattern plaster, pies in the shape of bear faces, and sewing teddy bears. Even he has a gentle heart that makes Murin have to pretend to like his teddy bear. Initially, Murin was mesmerized by Azazel's cold aura, but after learning he was gentle, Murin was shocked. However, he felt Azazel was a very good royal guard, so he began to tolerate Azazel's gentle nature. The next day, Beelzebub introduced a girl who was a former royal angel named Belphegor. But Belphegor has a very strange habit where she will feel nervous and want to wet the bed when meeting a stranger. This confused Murin, and he didn't know what to do in front of Belphegor. The situation became even more awkward when Azazel entered Beelzebub's room, and a nervous Belphegor immediately ran out of the palace. Shortly after, the royal guards told Beelzebub to come to the meeting room because there was a meeting to attend. The next day, Murin discussed in Azazel's room to find a way for him to get a girlfriend. But he became increasingly dizzy with Azazel's various suggestions because he had never been close to any girl. When Azazel discovered that Murin never got Valentine's cake from anyone else, Azazel was kind enough to make some delicious cookies for him. When Murin was enjoying Azazel's cake in the palace lobby, he accidentally met Belphegor and offered Azazel's cake to her. On that occasion, he explained that Belphegor need not be afraid of Azazel because he is a very good person. One day, when Murin was having lunch with Beelzebub at a cafe, he suddenly realized that the cafe was filled with romantic dating couples, so he panicked. Beelzebub, knowing his reaction, offered to feed him. However, this shocked him because he had never experienced such a romantic event so far. After lunch, Murin and Beelzebub went around the city center and accidentally met a former male angel named Astaroth. Astaroth is a handsome young man who is very flirtatious and often seduces girls, but Beelzebub is not at all interested in his charms. He briefly told Murin about the beautiful moment in the past when he and Beelzebub were still angels above the clouds. Seeing Astaroth's close relationship with Beelzebub, Murin thought they looked like a great couple. However, his comment ruined her mood, and she finally left Astaroth and Murin behind. When Beelzebub returned to the palace, Murin invited her to have lunch together the next day, which made her smile happily. Not long after that, Murin asked her to finish the office work that was increasing and piling up. The next day, when Beelzebub was working in her office, Astaroth kept trying to tease her, and she was annoyed by his attitude. Shortly after, a cool woman named Sargatanas came and immediately captured Astaroth. It turns out Sargatanas is his personal assistant who wants to pick him up so he can return to the palace and finish his work. Murin became amazed by Sargatanas, who always acted cool and had the aura of a formidable woman. On another day, when Murin was attending a meeting with Beelzebub, he saw a girl with glasses who looked very cute. But when the girl realized that he was staring at her, the girl named Eurynome instead showed a strange expression. After the meeting, Murin met with Eurynome, who accidentally dropped a handkerchief in front of him. He looked for her whereabouts to return the handkerchief, but when he managed to find her, he found a surprising fact. It turns out that Eurynome has a strange fantasy obsessed with younger men and often imagines someone's appearance when they were children. The next day, Murin took Beelzebub to watch a movie together since he had just got 2 free tickets from his friend. After she accepted the invitation, Beelzebub became even more excited to complete her work. Unfortunately, Murin suddenly had a fever the next day, so the plan was postponed. Afterward, she visited his house with Azazel to ensure he was okay. Azazel tried to cook warm porridge for Murin while Beelzebub offered to help wipe the sweat off his body. Azazel was surprised when he saw their position. After that, Murin suggested she go out with Azazel, but she refused the offer because she preferred to accompany Murin a little longer. In the afternoon, before she returned to the palace, Beelzebub tried to check the body temperature of Murin, who was fast asleep. However, because she was nervous, she became awkward and kissed his forehead without him knowing. When Beelzebub returned to her room, Murin felt embarrassed and confused about what she had just done to him. A few days later, Murin recovered and started doing his usual activities with Beelzebub. They had lunch and coffee together at their favorite cafe while occasionally discussing their work. That day, Azazel taught Murin to go to the library together to look around and look for some reading books. When they arrived at the library, they saw a young man named Dantalion, who served as a librarian. However, because Dantalion often read until the middle of the day, he spent most of his time sleeping during the day. Besides working as a librarian, it turns out he is one of the demon lords like Beelzebub and has a personal assistant named Molech. When Murin was going around looking for story books, Eurynome suddenly appeared and immediately scolded him for approaching Dantalion, who had been her target. On the other hand, Beelzebub was helping Belphegor to make some brownies to give Azazel. Apparently, Belphegor has fallen in love with Azazel, but she still has trouble conveying her feelings, so she intends to approach him slowly. Shortly afterward, Beelzebub and Belphegor try hard to finish their brownie cooking by asking for help from a private chef, reading books, and buying all the groceries in the pouring rain. After a long struggle, Belphegor finally made some delicious chocolate brownies. Even though she was very nervous, she still managed to get up the courage to give the chocolate brownies to Azazel. Not long after, Beelzebub also gave a delicious chocolate brownie to Murin, who coincidentally had bought her a book gift. The next day, when he was escorting her to the office while reading their work agenda, her heels suddenly broke. Realizing they would be late, Murin offered to carry her until they arrived at the office. But when he saw the sexiness of her body, he started to feel awkward and cancelled the plan. After Murin and Beelzebub arrived at their office, her personal fashion designer, Adramelech, came to repair her broken heels. She does feel more comfortable wearing heels than ordinary shoes because by using heels, she can see Murin more closely. At a glance, we are shown a scene in the past when Beelzebub, an angel in the sky, is transferred to hell for the first time. When she plunged into hell, Beelzebub was immediately greeted by various soft dolls that were much softer than the clouds above the sky. Since then, she began to like all things cute, like dolls and others. The next day, after Beelzebub finished her interview with one of the TV stations, the weather suddenly worsened with heavy rain accompanied by lightning. Because she was outside the palace, Azazel asked Murin to find and pick her up. After searching for some time, Murin finally found Beelzebub, who was hiding in a playground. At that moment, he finally found out that she feared the sound of thunder, but he had promised he would not reveal the secret to anyone. One day, Murin and the others were bathing together in the aged bath with Astaroth. Astaroth, who had perverted thoughts, began to imagine the girls taking a bath together in the next room. He tried to lure Murin and the others to peek together by discussing the sexiness of the girls. However, Azazel, Murin, and Dantalion had no interest in peeking at the girls. But Astaroth and Molech kept trying to peek at the girls in various ways, from looking for cracks in the bathroom walls to diving into the bottom of the swimming pool. Unfortunately, because all these efforts failed, Astaroth was determined to peek directly into the women's bathroom. In the end, the action was successfully thwarted by Sargatanas, who had predicted his perverted behavior. On another day, When Beelzebub was walking with Belphegor, she discovered that Murin had an adorable dog. It made her realize that she still didn't know him well and had never asked anything about his life. Therefore, she intended to find out everything about him and tried to ask him some questions. Unfortunately, Beelzebub felt so nervous about asking Murin personal things that, in the end, she even asked about the color of his underwear. And the funny thing is that he answered the question even though he felt slightly embarrassed when he told her. A few days later, Beelzebub heard the news that the cute pet shaped like a small cloud that she had was gaining popularity among the public. She intends to go to a cafe holding a cute pet exhibition. Sargatanas, a cool and elegant woman, secretly also really likes these cute animals but never shows her feelings in front of everyone. It reached the point where she couldn't help but look at the cute animal in person, so she disguised herself to see it in a cafe. When Sargatanas arrived at the cafe, she accidentally met Azazel. She had no choice but to admit that she likes cute things like teddy bears or cute little dogs. He tried to calm her by saying she need not feel ashamed of him because everyone has the right to entertain themselves, even if the entertainment does not match their image. At the same time, Murin and Beelzebub came to the cafe, and she bought cute pets in large quantities. A few days later, Belphegor invited Beelzebub to go to the beach together because Belphegor had missed the beach so much. After learning that they have an empty schedule, Beelzebub invites Murin to go on vacation together, and he agrees to that as long as Azazel is allowed to come along. A few days before the beach vacation, Murin began to prepare himself with physical exercises to make his body look more muscular. At the same time, Beelzebub and Belphegor started shopping to find suitable swimsuits. After choosing various types of swimwear, Beelzebub found several suitable swimsuits, and wanted to ask Murin what he thought about them. When he contacted Beelzebub, he was surprised by Beelzebub's very sexy appearance. He said the swimsuit suited her even though he felt a little embarrassed to see her in person. Unfortunately, their plan failed because on the day they were about to go to the beach, the weather became very bad, and everyone was advised not to go. One day while Beelzebub was busy doing her office work, Murin asked permission to go to the library for a while. But that made her less eager to do her assignments, and even lazier. When he returned and found that she still hadn't finished her task, Murin threatened that he would move to another division if Beelzebub continued to laze around. This made her feel even more down, so she decided to take a break and tell Belphegor about it. At the same time, Murin told Astaroth what had just happened and asked what he should do. Astaroth advised him to apologize to Beelzebub while giving a gift. Hearing that, he apologized to her office and said he would never move to another division. After their relationship improved, they often worked overtime to complete various office work that kept piling up. As a result, Beelzebub and Murin fell asleep easily and occasionally fell asleep in the middle of their work. After all, the more time they spent together, their relationship grew closer. Elsewhere, Sargatanas gets news that Astaroth has suddenly disappeared, so she must intervene to find him. After looking in various places, it turned out that he was busy dating a girl, so she took and dragged him back to the palace. On the way, Sargatanas and Astaroth rested in a park while buying some canned drinks. While in the park, she saw several busy couples dating, which made her want to date someone. Although right now, beside her, there is a handsome young man named Astaroth, she never thought of dating him. Sargatanas realizes that Astaroth is a playboy who always teases girls, so she prefers not to fall in love with him. However, she can't deny that Astaroth has extraordinary charm and charisma until she still often blushes when he teases her. When winter came, Beelzebub felt cold and started sneezing because the heater in her office was broken. Murin realized that her clothes were too revealing, so he suggested she change into warmer clothes. Seeing Beelzebub still sneezing, Murin gave his scarf to her so she could feel warm again. A few days later, when Belphegor and Beelzebub were attending a tea party, Belphegor accidentally drank Adramaleca's wine. As a result, she was drunk, and while in a drunken state, she accidentally met Azazel. Belphegor, who thought it was a dream, approached Azazel and asked him to accompany her for some time. At that moment, Azazel wondered why all this time, when Belphegor was awake, she had always avoided him. But before he could ask her about it, she had already fallen asleep. The next day when Beelzebub woke up, she accidentally broke the sweater Murin had given her. She felt guilty and started acting strangely in front of him. Murin was confused by her sudden action and wondered if he had made a mistake. In the evening, Beelzebub went to see Adramelech and asked him to repair the sweater because it was very valuable to her. The next day she was cheerful again in front of Murin after successfully repairing his sweater as before. One day, Beelzebub and Murin had a flower party picnic in a park and asked all the guests to bring their own food. However, when people discovered that she had never eaten fried chicken, everyone brought the same menu, namely fried chicken. Fortunately, Adramelech invited Beelzebub's personal chef to prepare a meal for them. On seeing the clusters of flowers falling in the wind, Beelzebub said that if one managed to catch the clusters of flowers before falling to the ground, that person would be lucky. Because she failed to get the flower cluster, Murin was kind enough to give her a flower petal that fell in his hand. They were happy with their closeness right now, even though they still hadn't expressed their feelings for each other. This is the end of the anime.